Let us come together in a spirit of compassion and respect for ourselves, others attending this service. We especially welcome those who are visiting today. If you haven't yet done so, please sign in at the visitors table by the front door, where you can be placed on our mailing list to receive weekly emails and our monthly newsletter. We are grateful for today's service, which was developed and shared by the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or the UUSC. An annual spring program of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, UUSC Justice Sunday, is a day of learning, commitment, and support for human rights. This year's service focuses on what it means to be in solidarity with human rights activists and frontline communities all around the world. Before we continue on to worship, there are some announcements. Today, directly after worship, please consider enjoying our new Inquirers series. Grab your snacks and meet in the sanctuary. The Inquirers series provides an opportunity to learn about Unitarian Universalism and congregational life in an informal and interactive way. Today, our David Bindi will lead a discussion on music at All Peoples. We will also have information about worship available. Inquirers will come together every first and third Sunday and will include such topics such as worship, religious education, justice and community service, and sharing your time and talents. Today we are without a pianist, we are not without a pianist. We had a surprise guest come in. His name is James Johnson, who by miracle happened to walk through our doors to gift us the blessing of music this morning. Goodness.
Our opening words are from Margaret Mead. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, linked with each other.
We now invite you to rise in body or spirit for the chalice lighting and opening hymn and spoken affirmation. Our chalice lighting words are from Tracy Johnson. We kindle our chalice flame this morning, awakening the fire of our ancestors in our hearts. Beacon of freedom held out to light the way, light of reason illuminating the path, spark of courage igniting our spirits aglow. With hope for all we endeavor to do together, holy flame of times past, brighten this present moment, that we may be the love that is the center of our foundation both. Blessed be. Our opening hymn this morning is number 38, Morning Has Broken. May I please invite Della and David to lead us in this song. Beautiful. Please join me now in our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in the community to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. May the young and young at heart are now invited to come forward for a time for all ages here at the chancel. Got no kids? No kids? Hello. How do you do, fellows? Lovely, lovely, lovely. Zora, hi. This is Valerie.
Hey, hold the boss.
Oh, we have more friends joining us this morning.
Yay!
Hi, guys. I have a question for you. What is something that Unitarian Universalists do every time we meet together? That's right, we do like chalice. The chalice is very important to us as Unitarian Universalists. Every time we gather together, no matter where we are, we light a chalice. And it's fun to think about how people all over the country and the world are doing the same as we are now. But did you know the flaming chalice wasn't always the symbol of Unitarian Universalism? Today I want to tell you a story about the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or the UUSC. It all started over 80 years ago when Unitarians in the United States were watching what was happening in Europe, and they were very worried about what was happening. Because a man named Adolf Hitler and the people he was leading called the Nazis were becoming very powerful, and they believed some very mean and wrong things. They believed that the only people who were any good were people who were like them. And, you know, they wanted everyone to be the same as them. And if you wanted well, they would kick you out of your house, they would take your things, they wouldn't let you work, and eventually they started killing people. They all did it. Jewish people, gay people, people with disabilities, and people of color, all of them were targets of Nazis during this time. It was very scary. What do you think you would do if you saw something like that happening? What do you want to know? Absolutely. That's a good idea. Well, you know, animals are really cool and very important for our ecosystem. So, thank you for sharing that. Do you think that people in the church would want to help too? It was the same back then. Unitarians wanted to help people in Europe who were being targeted by Nazis. So Unitarian minister and his wife from Wesley, Massachusetts, went to Europe to see how they could help people there. They found lots of ways to get help when they got there, but they had to be creative because the Nazis were always watching, and it would be very dangerous if they got caught. The sharks helped get the paperwork people needed to escape to safer places. Sometimes they didn't even see past guards very excited. They also helped people, including kids like you, find food and clothing in a time that was very hard to find. The sharks were very brave, but they didn't do this work alone. They worked with people in the Jewish communities in Europe. They worked with other Unitarians in the United States who sent them money and other supplies
as the Secretary of the Board of Trustees, and so I'm up here talking to you about giving money to the church, and maybe even giving more money to the church. So I'm going to tell you three things, and in case you're feeling sleepy, I'm going to go ahead and tell you all three of them now. First, I'm going to tell you why I think we need to hire a minister. Then I'm going to tell you that we not only need money for hiring a minister, but for many other things as well. And third, I'm going to tell you that we can do this. So why do I think we need a minister? Some people say, well, we have great staff, we have wonderful guest speakers on Sunday, we have many volunteers tirelessly working to keep things going. And my explanation is going to involve a simile. I'm going to liken us, the church, to people riding on a bus. And we are riding this bus because we hope it will take us to places where we can become better people and make the world a better place to live in. So we are managing to keep the bus moving. Mostly we have the engine running, we have the body of the bus intact, we seem to be keeping wheels on the bus, and we're putting fuel in the gas tank to keep those wheels on the bus going round and round. But what we don't have is a guide. So I'm going to liken the minister to a GPS that helps us to find the way to where we're trying to get to. And yes, we need one, and we need money to hire one. So I'm just going to briefly mention everything else that we need money for. I can't tell you all the stuff, but some of the major ones, we're still paying on our mortgage for our building. We're trying to keep it repaired, which is an uphill battle and costs a lot of money. We have to pay our great staff that's helping us to keep the bus moving. And we have to spend lots and lots of money for many other things, like keeping the building heated and air conditioned. So now I'm going to tell you the part about how we can do this. A few weeks ago, David Bendy stood up here and talked about how if you can only give $5 or $10 a week, multiply that by 52, and make that your pledge for the year, because it can add up to hundreds of dollars and it can make a difference. So I'm asking everybody to look inside yourself, and let's all do what we can do. If we pull together, we can do this, and I believe we will. So thank you all for riding on the bus with me.
We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are a part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. Each Sunday, we take half of the non-dedicated cash offering that is received and share it with a local organization whose values and goals reflect our own. This quarter, we are supporting the Texas UU Justice Ministry, a statewide justice ministry that raises the voices of Unitarian Universalist values in the public arena and seeks to have those values enacted into legislation and public policy. Please give generously. The gift of the congregation will be most gratefully received. Will our ushers please come forward? 10:23.
Thank you all. At this time in our service, we pause to give time and attention to the things in our community that are important to us. We gather here for healing and for peace in our hearts, and to acknowledge the shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week there is a journal outside the sanctuary, outside the entrance to the sanctuary, where you can write a message of memory or hope before the service. We honor these messages by lighting 3 candles here next to our chalice. Also, at any time during our service, you are welcome to come forward and light a candle in our meditation center here at the side of the chancel. We hold and honor the sorrows and celebrations among us, including those deeply felt but left here unspoken. Our meditation words are from Matt Asplaw. Breathe with me. Breathe with me the breath of life. Inhale, inspire, inspiration, ruach, pneuma, spiritus, the Holy Spirit, the many names for breath. Breathe with me. Know that with each breath we take in, the molecules of air that were breathed by every person that has ever lived. Breathe with me and breathe the breath of Jesus, of Moses, of Mohammed, of the Buddha. Breathe with me and know that we are all interdependent, that the spirit of life flows through us all. Breathe with me as we come together to do the holy work of interconnection and relationship, that our work here may be blessed. Let us pause for a moment of silent meditation. Thank you. Today we are celebrating UUSC Justice Sunday with a sermon by UUSC President Reverend Mary Catherine Mourn and UUSC Director of Justice Education Reverend Deanna Von Dieve, entitled Belonging to One Another.
At UUSC, we strive to engage in the work of human rights and justice through radical partnerships of trust. We believe and understand that connection, kinship, is a fundamental human need, and it is our only hope for advancing a vision of justice and human rights. We are not alone. We are part of one human family. We share one living planet. We belong to one another, each and all.
Our work is not to build bridges, but rather be present with each other across the lonely abyss until our faithfulness reveals the connections that already exist. Connections that have been denied and disguised by the many forms of oppression alive in our world. Call again and again, friend. Wave your ribbons of solidarity. Remind me you are there, here, until I trust that I can find my way home to you, find my way home to us.
Thank you, Dee, for those powerful words of connection from your poem. The image of finding our way home to us, and also the reminder that too often powerful systems work to deny and disguise love and connection. As political theorist Brian Stout has written in a blog he writes called Building Belonging, he says, all domination systems, whether we call them white supremacy, patriarchy, colonialism, extractive capitalism, all domination systems depend on three things to maintain their power: disconnecting us from ourselves and our bodies, disconnecting us from each other and our communities, and disconnecting us from the land and the other beings that inhabit the land with us. Domination systems use these tools to deny and disguise our true connections and create a sense, in that sense of disconnection, create in us our own belief that we are powerless. And friends, when we are disconnected, we are powerless. When we forget our connections, abandon the possibility of another world, when we fall into cynicism and despair, we are playing into the hands of people who would hoard power. Our perception of powerlessness is exactly what empire is depending upon to maintain its violent extractive hold on us and on our planet.
Thank you. The Reverend Mel Hoover reminds us in the collection, Been in the Storm So Long, we can dare to face ourselves in our entirety, to understand our pain, to feel the tears, to listen to our frustration and confusion, and to discover new capacities and capabilities that will empower and transform us. And UUSC's mission affirms the dignity, worth, and power of all people. You heard the third, and power of all people. And it is this clarity about the worth and dignity and power of all people that makes it irresistible to act as if another world is possible. This analysis of power, practicing power with each other, resisting power over each other, grounds our work firmly in the liberatory practice of solidarity. Solidarity is a word that's used often, and I'll take a moment to give us a little grounding in it. Solidarity, where we acknowledge our own power and agency and connected struggles. It invites us to practice liberation, liberatory love, grounded in our breath, in our connection with each other, practicing as a lineage, as a collective, planting the future with our current actions. In solidarity, we learn to wonder, how is my well-being bound up with yours? In solidarity, we ask, what can we do to make our mutual well-being possible?
UUSC partners invite, understand, and practice solidarity. They embrace connection and kinship. And they consistently and stubbornly claim their power and reject the notion that there is little we can do. One of my favorite examples of this comes from our partner Pacific Climate Warriors, indigenous people in whose homes and livelihoods and identities are at tremendous risk due to climate change. Some of them are in immediate danger from rising water, but make no mistake, as they repeatedly affirm, we are not drowning, we are fighting. They are not drowning, they are fighting. Some among them, a cadre of young adults associated with the Pacific Climate Warriors, found themselves together in a law school at the University of the South Pacific. 27 young adults from multiple nations across the South Pacific studying in a law school together were given the assignment to imagine the most progressive and ambitious climate change action they could take within a legal arena. And so they researched previous actions, international actions and campaigns, and decided that the United Nations General Assembly should direct the International Court of Justice to create an advisory opinion. I'll back up. The Pacific law students wanted to ask the United Nations General Assembly to instruct the Court of Justice to issue an advisory opinion on the human rights impacts of climate change. A statement, an understanding, accountability framework that does not exist. They took their proposal to the Pacific Island Forum and essentially got a nod and a congratulations. I don't know, maybe an A. But this was not an idle exercise for them. They wanted nothing less, these 27 young adults from the small nations of the South Pacific, wanted nothing less than a United Nations vote calling the court to issue this opinion. So they formed Pacific Island Students Fighting Climate Change, and UUSC is grateful and proud to have been one of the Pacific Island students' first funders. Solomon and Vishal, Pacific Island student campaign directors, told UUSC's board in October of 2022 in Boston that it was funding from UUSC that made it possible for them to attend the International Climate Conference, the Conference of Partners, COP, in 21 in Scotland. And at that meeting, they were able to make connections with large international groups like Amnesty International and Greenpeace, which really, they said, was what made their campaign possible, made it possible for them to carry their campaign forward. UUSC has also had the privilege of providing various kinds of support, including it's not infrequent that I'm asked to sign a letter to provide credentials for the students to attend gatherings of the United Nations. We also were able, through one of our supporters, to provide them housing in New York City during the height of their work on the campaign. And it just is such a great example of the way being a small organization and being able to move quickly and do things in an agile way is one of our superpowers, we think. With the sponsorship of the nation of Vanuatu, the students indeed took their proposal to the world, and ultimately, from October, actually, in 2022 to the next spring, gathered the support of 120 nations, almost 2/3 of the member nations of the United Nations. And on March 29th, last March, the United Nations General Assembly adopted by consensus the resolution imagined in that distant law school classroom by 27 activists who knew that they have dignity and worth and power. Solomon and Vishal and UUSC's Director of Advocacy were together that day in the General Assembly Hall as the vote was taken. And that afternoon, we got a message from Salote describing their tears of joy. I think even they weren't sure that this would ever happen. Their tears of joy and gratitude and the vision they have, the hope that that action brought them for their children and for ours. In the spring, our College of Social Justice will be leading the intergenerational spring seminar at the United Nations, and we'll be exploring with UUSC partners how we can support the ongoing work necessary to carry forward the Pacific Island students' vision.
Thank you. That will be at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and other partners may be there as well. I first read the report, One Story, a report of the First Peoples convening on climate force displacement, when I was a member of the design team for Beloved Conversations Within. Perhaps some of y'all have participated in that racial justice program offered by FAS Collaborative. And that's how I learned that in 2018, 20 years ago, UUSC co-sponsored and co-convened the gathering of Indigenous representatives from the U.S. states of Alaska, Louisiana, and Washington, as well as Bangladesh and Pacific Island nations. Imagine this convening, if you will, from around the world, facing climate change, right at the very front line of it. They met for 3 days and shared how climate change was very rapidly impacting their communities, their traditional ways of life, and they began to develop a collective vision for the future. And out of this came a declaration which includes, "We express our solidarity and the truth we are confronting as First Peoples and Indigenous peoples living in the areas most vulnerable to the impacts of climate crisis, including being forcefully displaced from our land. We maintain the unbreakable human and sacred spiritual connection with our land, air, water, forest, sea ice, plants, animals, and our communities handed down to us from our ancestors." And y'all, that convening committed to remain connected as First Peoples and Indigenous peoples that are affected by the climate crisis, with the goal of accelerating our progress to realizing our adaptation strategies. They are not drowning, they are fighting. And USC has accompanied them on this fight, and all that organizing, all that dreaming, all this where are the levers of power, right? Is it the UN? Is it the International Court? It turns out in this case, it is the Inter-American Council on Human Rights, get ready, for economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights. And that special rapporteur, after so much collaborating, said, we will come and we will visit with the indigenous peoples in Louisiana and Alaska. And apparently it usually takes 2 years at least for something like that to happen once they decide they're going to come. But with UUSC's nimbleness available to accompany and convene, it just took a couple of months. It was an intense couple of months, not gonna lie. But they got there, and finally, the special rapporteur made the conclusion there is an urgent need to act to protect the lives and cultures of the frontline communities facing climate change in Louisiana and Alaska, finally offering a long-awaited global recognition and an international pressure point. As Elder Rosina of Grand Bayou, Louisiana said so powerfully, as small communities, we were isolated. In solidarity, we have a bigger voice and a stronger presence. They are not drowning, they are fighting.
These are just two stories that our amazing partners around the world of the work that our amazing partners are doing with ours and your solidarity and support. Among our other work, just mention one, you may be aware that we have partners struggling for justice and accountability in Burma, also known as Myanmar. Our work with partners there actually helped to facilitate the United States acknowledgement of the genocide against the Rohingya people. In solidarity, we strive to bear witness to the brutal violation of human rights around the globe. Which means that sometimes, even when we do not have partners in the midst of a crisis, we are called to solidarity. This happened just this past fall, as we joined human rights organizations in condemning the Hamas violence of October 7th and the horrific response of the Israeli government. We provided an early grant from our emergency response fund to support a trusted organizational ally who was doing humanitarian work in that moment in Gaza. And we continue to work with the funder community to direct resources to Palestinians and support our global partners in their demands for a ceasefire, for honoring the rights, human rights of every person, for resisting the lies of supremacy and disconnection and powerlessness.
Lucas Johnson, community organizing as spiritual practice, reminds us we have a responsibility to hold to the power of love that we know to be true. And here's the hard part, and to not allow the world around us to deaden that in ourselves. Resisting the lies of disconnection and powerlessness is faithful and necessary work. We cannot consent to being distantly devastated, dear ones. Being love, holding to the power of love that we know to be true, this is a holy through line for Unitarian Universalists. UUSC has been resisting fascism since 1940. It's a beautiful button as well, and it's a truly frightening statement. UUSC has been being love in solidarity with the worth and dignity and power of all people. As the Reverend Ella Kimler fiercely reminds us, love is the answer. And I don't mean the feeling of love, I mean the force of love. I mean love as power. I mean love which insists that we all belong to one another.
So many of the systems that organize our shared life, politically, economically, and socially, are powered by domination and supremacy. Racism, patriarchy, extractive capitalism, they're tools of empire, of alienation and oppression. This we know. And we can resist these systems. Our resistance can take the form of organizing, supporting human rights work by joining UUSC, learning about racist systems and committing to the work of anti-racism, working for peace, accompanying people seeking asylum, and accompanying internally displaced people who are trans and gender expansive by providing a safe place to sleep. Around the world, with your support, UUSC works with partners to challenge systems, to resist systems that deny our connection and kinship and reject the worth of people based on their identities. In rejecting the idea that there is no other way and little we can do, feminist activists in Poland, the Pacific Island students, grassroots groups in Burma and nearby refugee camps, feminist farmers in Nicaragua, land and water defenders in Honduras, and many others are showing us and leading us toward another world.
At a fascism resistance training last week, because here we are again, someone said we need a global liberation party. And y'all, even though I have a poli-sci degree, my first imagination was of a global celebration, complete with disco balls and streamers, celebrating our collective liberation. And then I caught on to the context that it was about a political party, but there for a minute, the joy was real. And I want to give thanks that joy does not wait for the struggle to be over, that joy can accompany us through facing ourselves in our entirety and turning with hope and curiosity towards our own faithful liberatory practices, resisting the lies of disconnection and powerlessness, holding one another in the midst of unthinkable sorrow, breathing in and out, in solidarity with each other, remembering our connections, our collective dignity, worth, and power. Friends, we are not drowning, we are fighting. In solidarity, we have a bigger voice and a stronger presence. Thank you for joining in solidarity with UUSC, the UU College of Social Justice, and all the grassroots partners who consistently and stubbornly claim their power and reject the notion that there is little that we can do. May we continue to find the courage together to practice liberation again and again with a love which insists that we all belong to one another. And so it is.
Please join me in singing our closing hymn, rather than number 108, which is listed, I believe, in your order of service. Excuse me. The hymn will be number 1030 in the teal hymnal. We are marching.
Our closing chalice words are from Eric Williams. My friends, may the spirit of love be a living flame before you, a guiding star above you, a firm path below you, and a gentle presence behind you.
Our benediction, is from Norman V. Naylor. Reminded that we are part and participants of the universe, let us go forth from the quiet of this hour, encouraged to strive toward faithfulness to the best in ourselves, in others, and in the whole creation. Our service is ended. Please join us for coffee and conversation in the library behind the sanctuary.